Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Today we're going to have a look at yet another clickbaity article from ARSTechnica. I promise I actually generally like what they do over there, but I seem to have more negative things to say about their articles than positive things to say. And today's article is really no different. We're going to have a quick look here at this review, and we're going to see the negative spin on there. All right, so here's our article. It says, Mint 18.1 review. Forget about Wayland and get comfy with the command line. Odd approach to updates, lack of shiny new graphics stack makes 18.1 hard to recommend. I'm not done laughing yet. Okay, I'm done. All right. So the author of this post, and he openly admits that he is a huge Arch fan. Although they do say that Fedora 25, in fact, you can see down there the further reading tag down here. If I can find my mouse, there we go. The further reading tag says down here, Fedora 25 with Wayland, Linux has never been easier or more handsome. This is, I think, in my opinion, a classic example of some flashy technology showing up, not quite being ready for the market and falling on its face a little bit. Maybe it will eventually catch on. Now, I'm not anti-Wayland. In fact, Wayland very well may be the better way to go in the future. So first, let's dissect what is Wayland. Actually, before I want to dissect Wayland, I want to talk about why it is a challenge to exclude Linux Mint 18.1 from a good distro simply because of its absence of Wayland. So, what does this mean? Well, if you remember a big company, a huge company that sounds like a fruit, doing a couple of fascinating things. The first is they got rid of headphone jacks, okay? So this is my iPhone SE, and actually my iPhone 5C died out on me, and the 7 was out. I will not buy an iPhone 7, period. And I will never buy another iPhone that does not have a headphone jack in it. Okay, because it's still too frequently used of a port. I can't say never. Like 20 years from now, I will probably have moved on from the headphone jack by then. But let me get real here. Okay, like I got these computer speakers back here. You can't see those ones. You can see these ones probably. I got these computer speakers here. I have this set of computer speakers. I think there might be another one over here somewhere. I have 5 or 6 of these sets of computer speakers throughout the house, and they all operate with a headphone jack. As does every device that I have has the headphone jack if it's supposed to play sound or music, so I can take my various devices in there, like my weight room. I go into my weight room, and I can plug in whatever device, an iPad, usually it's the iPad in the weight room, plug it in and play something, and I have portable headphone jacks. Of course, a lot of cars have that. Some of the brand new cars have the Bluetooth capability, which is great. But then the same company also got rid of every functional usable port in the latest MacBook Pro computer in exchange for USB Type-C. I don't know if you've went looking for equipment for USB Type-C. I know last time I went looking for flash drives, there were a good couple dozen flash drives there to choose from. One had USB Type-C connector. I got onto Amazon and did some checking. I think I might have found one web camera that uses the interface. I don't think I found any microphones that use the interface. Pretty much every single thing we need dongles for. What does that mean? That means we're not ready for it yet. Okay, so going back to Wayland. One distro has Wayland this year as the primary means. So I think there's more of them by now. I'm pretty sure that my Linux Mint computer runs Wayland as well. I'm pretty sure. Ubuntu 16.10? I don't know. Does it? Here's the thing about Wayland. Okay? Wayland is, for the basic average user, It makes things easier to program in. It makes things more secure for sure. But it's too new of a technology. And I went back and did a little bit of checking around, and it seems that every computer that I'm pretty sure I have in my office runs Wayland. I'm having issues connecting to the internet and doing a few other basic tasks like transferring files between folders. Because one of the things that Wayland does is to improve security, Windows can't share like they did under the Xorg platform. And there is a lot of great benefit to that, but the technology's not there yet. And so this reviewer comes out and look at this first sentence, okay? How could I proclaim, of course, he does this with the /sarcastic. Let's see. Okay, here I'm sorry, it's the second paragraph here. But I digress. There is a very simple reason I didn't pick Mint as the best distro of 2016, and I didn't even have to wait to test it. The reason is Wayland. So automatically, Fedora's the best pick for 2016 because it has Wayland. Why don't people use Fedora very much? Well, and I know that a lot of your hardcore Linux workstation guys do use Fedora. Okay, don't get me wrong, and it's a great distro. But why don't they? Well, there's one joke that you hear about Fedora is, I don't run Fedora because I need my computer operational more than 11 months out of the year, because Fedora has this perpetual forceful rolling release and frequently things break during a forced upgrade. And there's of course ways you can stop, prevent, and do all that, but the fact of the matter is Fedora does seem to break things. Even in my VirtualBox, upgrading from Fedora 24 to Fedora 25 totally broke my guest editions. I don't have time to mess with Fedora. I don't have time to sit here and mess with getting the system right. What else about it? Well, not only do they not include the media codexes that pretty much everybody in the world now utilizes their computer for some degree of media, not only do they not include media codexes, they make it a royal pain to put them in. So you can do it. There's instructions to do it, but they're not a foundation that helps with that. And it keeps with their philosophy. I'm not saying that we need to go ahead and change that around, but I am saying that it is for a different thing. But to say, hey, they have Wayland now. Whoop-de-doo. Wayland, I don't think, is ready for prime time. So Linux Mint 18 does not use Wayland, which is, in my opinion, just fine. I'm sure that when Wayland is ready for prime time, it'll have its day on Linux Mint. But a lot of the things I've seen in Wayland, I believe initially it was difficult, if not impossible, to put desktop icons on things and to interact on the desktop. And frankly, that's what a desktop was designed for. Back when a desktop computer first started, it was so that you could interact. And that's how we behave. Think of it this way. Do you go into your office where you work and have a completely, perfectly clean desk? And all of your files are neatly in the file folder. And when you're going to do some project, you pull it out and then you lift out the one folder project, you close the folder drawer, you're working on the project, you go in, you put the thing down, you open it up, you pick up another one. Is that how we function? The answer generally is no. I'm sure there's a few of you out there that do, but the answer generally is no. That's not actually how we tend to function. And so because of that, we need to realize that the desktop on the computer was created to do things. And if you look at my desktop, I have various things that I'm currently actively working on my desktops. My Ubuntu computer back here. I'm in the process right now of extracting MP3s off of a music album here and putting them on here, and everything's going to rest on the desktop until I'm done with that project, and then this folder is going to get put inside of my media system and then thus distributed to the rest of the systems within my house. But everything's working off of the desktop. I also keep things on the desktop like shared folders for various pictures and whatever that I have to bounce back and forth between the different computer systems. And one of the things that I have found is Wayland was, I'm not sure if it still is, but was making it a little bit difficult to interact things upon the desktop. I think that has been resolved, and I'm not even completely sure. For me, the entire Wayland issue, since I'm not a core programmer of all of these types of things, it's not something that I'm much involved in, and because of that, as the general end user, it doesn't make a bean's hill of difference what display server is on your computer, so long as your display server works. And for me, I think Wayland is too early. And that's why Fedora is always at the edge. It's like Arch. It's at the edge of what Linux can do, which is a great thing to have distros that are there. And there are times we need to be at that. But understand that is not what Linux Mint is about. So let's look at why Linux Mint is the way Linux Mint is. So I have here a Linux Mint VirtualBox open, and the only reason I'm running a Linux Mint VirtualBox here is because this one is 18.1, the very Linux Mint that they're talking about. And first, I'm just going to show you it's not a lot different. In fact, I wasn't even completely sure this was Linux Mint 18.1 until I went in and I wanted to pull up the system information. Where is the system information? I want to get out of the VirtualBox as soon as I can, just so that I have better video. Sometimes I'm slow. So here, let's see, Linux Mint 18.1, Cinnamon Edition 64. And you can see the other info. I am running an older kernel on here. Cinnamon version is 3.2.7. My memory, hard drive, and graphics card. Okay, so we're running inside the graphics adapter. Okay, so, and inside of here, this has not changed pretty much at all. That is one of the key things that they talk about is the update manager. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And I really don't think there's anything else in here I want to show you, so we're going to go ahead and shut down the VirtualBox so I can free up some memory for doing better recording. I just wanted to show you that Linux Mint 18... Linux Mint 18.1 is not a lot different from 18.0. They did a couple of little stability type things. So let's have a look at this article the rest of the way. And I do apologize, but this is going to be a little bit longer, a little bit more ranty of a video, but I am so sick of these things. Like, this is another funny thing. Let's get this another way now. Get comfy with the command line. In Linux Mint, really? You don't need to go in the command line a whole lot in Linux Mint. I mean, really? You don't? I mean, you can do a whole lot more management. In fact, one of the things that you need to enter the command line on most distros for is in the event you encounter a permission issue. Like if, for example, on Linux Mint 18, on the sound down here, on the sound settings, if you come into your sound settings and you are wanting to change your sound settings here a little bit, there was a little bug that did not allow you to pick up the various sound items. And I'm going to double check, make sure we're on the right sound input. We should be, but we'll double check on that. Hold on just one second. Okay, good. I think OBS selected the correct sound for me automatically. I think that's independent. I do have to, I used to have to change that under 17.3. I used to have to change the sound input every time I booted that on. They seem to have resolved that. I haven't had to do that since 18. But there was a bug in there and you had to edit a Python file, change an input to an output on the Python file. And on any other Linux distro, you would have had to do that from the terminal. But Linux Mint 18 happens to have, actually it's Linux Mint in general, if I create a new folder here and I want to access this folder as root instead of accessing it as the user, which you would need to do to edit the Python folders, you can right click and you can open as root. All right. You of course have to enter your password. And this is one of the more things that it allows you to do on Linux Mint that most distros do not allow you to do, is open something as root. So it does give us the red notice, we are elevated permissions, i.e. be careful in here. But that's kind of, you don't need to touch the command line a whole lot in Linux Mint. So they're like, forget about Wayland, get comfy with the command line. So they must have talked a lot about the command line problems. Okay, all two, right here and right here. In the end, 18.1 lacks compelling must-have updates, but the disappointing defaults for the update manager would stop me from installing Linux Mint for anyone but experienced users who are comfortable updating their software from the command line. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Really? Because it's not a matter of It's not a matter of you need to update things from the command line. So he spends a lot of the time harping about how bad the update manager is in Linux Mint. And so let's have a quick look at the update manager, shall we? And I actually have not updated for a couple of days. So if you come in and click this, one of the things that he says is that you get this confusing dialogue when the system first loads. And you can actually go back and view that extremely confusing dialogue by going down and changing your preferences. So here are your three options: don't break my computer, or optimize stability and security, and always update everything. The reason this is on here is because this distro is targeted at moving people from a Windows-based platform to a Linux-based platform. And in my opinion, it does an absolutely, beyond a doubt, stellar job. If you still look at the basic computer stats, the majority of people are still on a Windows system. So this Cinnamon system is set up just like a Windows computer, which makes it comfortable. So you have three levels here, okay, which actually very much mirror the old Windows update prior to them Microsoft forcing updates on you. You have these options. Why do you have these options? Very simple. If I'm talking about giving this computer to somebody who's not familiar with Linux, which I just did recently, then we have to recognize the fact that there are times an update will break something. Like, do you know how to resolve a problem if you update the kernel and for whatever reason the kernel does not, the system does not open the computer? Well, you have to know how to fix and recover from a kernel issue. And that is why we have these options. If you always update everything, it will include kernel updates. And a kernel update could very well render the computer not functional. So by keeping optimized stability and security, you can be sure that most of the updates that come through, major security patches are going to be patched. And it's not this long delay like he claims in this article. In fact, we're going to look at that real quick. So he's talking about, I got to find that part in the article, but he's talking about the update manager. He says it's unchanged, couple of tweaks to learn how the kernel update options are displayed. Now they're sorted by version. Actually, that was the one thing I did not like about Linux Mint 18. I thought the Linux Mint 17 did a better job of allowing kernel changes because it gave you options for all of the kernels. This one here, I can go all of the, I think all of the 3 7s maybe, all of the 4 4s, and all of the 4 8s. But it doesn't allow the in-betweens, and maybe they just stripped out the ones that were known to cause problems or stability. Okay, but what he does down here, and what he's talking about, is that with this update thing, he's talking about the fact that updates aren't pushed quite as quickly. And so I wanted to test that. So I went in and I typed in a quick Google search for Ubuntu security notices because Linux Mint is based upon Ubuntu. So look at the very first security vulnerability, which was just pushed out, today/yesterday, whatever you call 12:20 a.m. on the 12th. So this was released January 11th. I'm recording this 12:20 a.m. on the 12th, so 20 minutes past the 11th. If I go right up into here and I look at my updates here, look at this. Whoa! They're already telling me I should upgrade this based upon a security vulnerability. That seems pretty fast to me. How about this one here? Now, a lot of these are kernel things, and the fix for this is to update to the latest kernel 4.8. But we encounter another problem down here, if I can find it. So you should indeed update your kernel, and I think I'm going to do that today. Let me actually, I think this is everything. Let me just go to the latest 16. I'm going to do 1604 LTS. Okay, so there's your other security vulnerability pushed out yesterday. Whoa, it's already here. And it was probably there yesterday too. I think I have not updated this for a few days. Now, one of these of note is this Adobe Flash Player plugin. And if you look over here, it says old version and new version. This version here, the old version, this is the one that I had noted broke Yahoo View videos. Now, I never bothered to back this one to a more previous version because I don't use this computer for watching many videos on. And, you know, it worked fine except for that one application. So it'll be curious to me to see if this new version fixes that Yahoo View problem. If it does, I'm going to go ahead and update my KDE version to this newer one, because you can come into this system and you can tell the system not to update certain packages. So you can come up here, and I want to say it's under Preferences. Here's your blacklisted packages. So you can see here that I denied unattended upgrades. I am not a fan of unattended upgrades. I'm not a fan of it on Windows 10. I'm not a fan of it on Linux Mint. Now, had unattended upgrades been allowed, it probably would have already pushed these two, maybe this one here, because they are all level 3 security issues. But I really like to know what's going on, because if a package does happen to render some program unstable, I'd like to be able to back it up if I need to. And if this is running, it's going to do things that I don't know. So you can blacklist any packages. So on my Linux Mint KDE computer, this Adobe Flash Player is under the blacklisted packages, because this version, the 2016-12-13, breaks Yahoo View, and that computer is used to watch videos on Yahoo View. And by the way, it does not break on Ubuntu. This computer actually is the Ubuntu 16.10. This does have this version of the package. It works fine. It's something with this package on Linux Mint on Firefox that does it. But, you know, I'm not bothered with that. I just rolled back to a previous version, fixed the problem, no big deal. Okay, we can also tell it when to auto refresh. We can select which levels we'd like. So if we don't even like the scary, confusing screen, we can come in here and just say, you know, is it visible? Is it safe? I can literally turn these guys on or off. Now, the reason I don't have these guys here is when I first set up the computer, I did pick that middle option. I did not have quite as much knowledge about Linux at that time, and so I did not want to be doing anything that would potentially render the system difficult. All right, and then here we have other options for showing and hiding the update manager, which is not a particularly confusing or a difficult thing. And what this allows you to do is I can keep my computer mostly up to date. And the idea behind this for many people in a position such as mine, where I get regular phone calls, I can't get a computer to work. Can you come help fix it? Sure, no problem. Well, if I give somebody Linux Mint set on the same program options here, they can get the basic things updated without worrying about bricking their system. And when I'm at their house next or whatever, I can go through and push the kernel updates myself without them having to worry about it. Because if something breaks, I know how to fix it, whereas they might not. And that's what I don't need to be doing, is telling people how to fix a problem with a kernel preventing your system from starting up. Okay, so those are different issues. So overall, this is not a confusing thing. It's not very difficult. It's not negative. And for whatever this guy's purpose, I don't know why he's so hung up on Wayland, that Wayland, like, if Wayland's not in it, it's a bad Linux distro. No, Linux is still about options. This is about options. It's about us being able to choose our system, choose what the desktop looks like, and even choose what display operators. Now, in 5 years, in 10 years, maybe in 10 years, a Linux distro without Wayland would probably be pretty rare. Okay, but understand, Wayland is a 5-year-old project, at least. I think it's a little older than that, but and it's needed. It is absolutely needed. I'm not saying that everything's got to stay on X, because X is extremely fragmented and insecure. There's a lot of problems with it, but Wayland is still too new to be pushing out to an operating system that you talk about its stability. And outside of a few issues that I've seen online with some people making comments, for the most part, Linux Mint is extremely stable. I don't have any problems with it at all. And the last thing I want is instability on this computer that I'm recording this on, because this is the computer that I travel with and need to work on. If I need to go, in fact, this is the computer. I took a 10-day trip across country this summer. This is the only work computer that I brought with me, because it's stable and it does everything I need it to do. So that's kind of that. So let's see if there's anything else in here that I wanted to comment about. Okay, so he's talking about it's only at, kernel's only at 4.4 even now, still plagued by some poorly implemented update and security issues that have dogged it for years. I don't think so. I just showed you the most recent security patches are already being pushed to it. They were just announced by Ubuntu today, and they're in the list today to update, and I will update those later on. So let's see. It's still building on 16.04, but there's plenty of new stuff to make Linux people happy, so that's good. They're not entirely negative on the article. So let's see if there's anything else in here. Pretty much everything else is about the same. I haven't noticed a whole lot of difference between 18.0 and 18.1. I'm not sure if I'll upgrade the computer quite yet. Let me talk real quick if this happens to be you and you do want to upgrade to Linux kernel 4.8, which actually I think I'm going to want to do. So to do that, you come up here under your Linux kernels, under your view menu, hit Linux kernels here. And then this will open up a page talking about Linux kernel. So 3.19 is an old version that is installed. 4.4 is installed. Now, this is what I was talking about. I do not like this system nearly as much as I like this in 17.3, because it told me which kernels were already installed on the system, but it also told me which kernels are in use. So why is 3.9 still here? Very good reason. 3.9 is still installed on the system, and you should always have at least a couple of kernels installed in your system. If I upgrade this to 4.8 today, and the system becomes unstable and doesn't start, or I want to roll back for some reason, if you boot up the computer, I want to say it's you hold Shift or Control Shift or something in there, and you will get the options inside your grub menu to look at the different options. And then you can go, what you can do is you can go down and you can select which kernel the system will load. So then you'll get your kernel will load separately from your packages. And so that's really what we want to, why you want to keep an old version. So I'm not sure why I need 3.19 on here, but I'm going to go ahead and keep it. There is the 4.4 on here, which I definitely need to upgrade this. And here, what I'll probably end up doing is just upgrade to the most recent 4.8.0.34. And then once I actually do this and upgrade this and this works, when I come in here, it will probably give me the latest update. I believe there is a kernel 4.8 after that one, and that will appear down here, in which case I just want to select this, load those kernels up, reboot the computer, make sure there's no problems. As long as there's no problems, it should be running just fine. But understand that a Linux kernel, it can render parts of the computer unstable, as can packages. As I had said, if I had this Adobe package here breaks functionality that I do use on computers, just not this one, so I don't care. In fact, I had a upgrade recently that broke the old version of OpenShot. So I still run OpenShot on the computer, but I had to upgrade to the latest version by using a PPA. Rather than using the package manager, because for whatever reason, and I think it had to do with I installed Kdenlive. Actually, I installed the most recent version of Kdenlive, and I think an update that came with Kdenlive knocked out OpenShot. I think is what happened there, which actually I'm a little happy about, because since I've been using Kdenlive, I love Kdenlive a whole lot more than OpenShot. It was just pretty complicated the first few times I used it, and so I stuck with OpenShot, which was easy. But anyway, let's look at something else here real quick. I had one other tab open. This is DistroWatch, because the article's talking about, Linux Mint out for the year, go with Fedora instead. Fedora has kind of been moving down a little bit on the list. I don't know, maybe moving up, maybe moving down. Hard to say. Last 12 months, we're gonna look at how this is doing here. So Fedora's sixth position in the last 12 months. Mint's number 1, of course. Fedora's number 7 last 6 months. Mint's number 1. Last 3 months, Fedora's number 7. Mint's number 1. Last 30 days, Fedora's number 6. Mint's number 1. Last 7 days, Fedora's number 10. Mint's number 1. So one person's like, I don't know how they figure this out. Well, it's quite simple. It tells you. It's page hit rankings. When someone comes to DistroWatch, which pages do they land on? So this is a pretty good indication, a decent indication of what's popular right now. Last 7 days, Fedora's been moving down the list. Mint's up there. Mint's been up there for a long time. Why is Mint up there? I'll give you a couple reasons. In fact, you know what? I'm going to see if I can find this gentleman's comment on here. He had his pros and cons, why he used it, why he didn't use Linux Mint. He listed the reasons why he liked it and the things that he didn't like about it. Okay, so all the above notwithstanding, here are the reasons I run Mint Cinnamon. So this is from JD, is it JD Rich or something? Posted this 6 hours ago. This is a comment on the article. All of the above notwithstanding, here are the reasons I run Mint Cinnamon. Okay, I grew up on Windows, and Mint is the least confusing distro for users in my background. Well, shocking. It seems to behave just like Windows in many aspects. I mean, I can set up my taskbar. I can set up my system tray, very much like Windows. It runs really well on old hardware. I don't run this on a lot of really old hardware, so I can't comment on that one. This is running right now on a Dell Inspiron 7000 series with an iCore 5 processor, and I upped the RAM to 8 gigabytes. It does have a touchscreen, which I have disabled because I think a touchscreen on a laptop is completely pointless, and this model computer, it's nothing having to do with Linux or Windows in the context I've seen it. This model computer, there's a problem with the touch screen where every now and again it's like someone keeps on tapping up here and it keeps on clicking and clicking and clicking at the very top of the screen, and it drives you mad. So I just disabled it, and if I happen to need that, I can actually enable it just by coming over into Places. I have a folder in my home folder simply called Scripts, and I can enable the touchscreen, and yay, now I have a functional touchscreen. In fact, actually, it's looking like my touchscreen's not... Oh, it's... Yeah, okay, so it is giving me a little bit of weird delay, but that's actually has everything to do with the fact that I'm running dual monitors right now. So the touchscreen support doesn't seem to work, but it's very possible that had I... had the touchscreen enabled before I plugged in the monitors, it might have worked. I don't know. So here's my disable, run that. Now touchscreen's disabled. And basically what I do is on my system, on my startup applications, is I simply run this disabled touchscreen script right there. I turn that on, and that will disable my touchscreen at start because I think a touchscreen on a laptop is a pretty pointless thing. So I'm kind of with Apple there. All right. Unlike most other distros, it is incredibly difficult to bork your install. Previous to Mint distros lasted me approximately 3 months before config file edit error rendered them unstable. I can't comment on that. I haven't had a lot of issue with that. I can tell you this computer, no problems. The computer right behind me, Ubuntu, this thing's been running consistently for, I don't know, over a year now. Probably a year and 3 months is when I first installed this. Actually, I installed it, I think it's 15.10, promptly upgraded it to 16.04 in the pre-alpha release, walked through everything alpha, no problems anywhere. In fact, the only time I had any problem is right when I upgraded to the official 16.04 release. All hell broke loose on the computer. Actually, no, not all hell broke loose, just a little bit of hell broke loose. Got most of that stuff resolved, no problems. But it wasn't like major things went unstable. I've not had a lot of instability in other Linux distros that I've run. Although that little netbook I keep talking about, the cup server won't work on Ubuntu for whatever reason. Let's see. In-place major version updates actually work. I can't tell you how many times I borked Ubuntu install simply from updating. And, that is a concern. Updating is a concern. What I really liked about upgrading to Linux Mint 18 was it runs a mock installation first and does a system check. And if that system check fails, it warns you, don't update. And indeed, Linux Mint 17.3 was stable and long-term supported until, I think, 2020 or so. The reason I upgraded to 18 was it was actually having to do with there is a problem on Linux Mint 18 with VPNs. VPNs do not work under Linux Mint 17.3, at least not without doing some really serious, crazy stuff. And I tried every bit of little serious, crazy stuff I could. Could not get VPNs to work at all under Linux Mint 17. Linux Mint 18 works perfectly, and I'm very glad I upgraded because now I can actually run HD video on OBS, which I was not actually able to do before. I loved 18, everything about 18. I have not actually encountered any negatives. Let's see, you can give it to someone who's never used Linux before, and not only will they be immediately productive, they won't even kill the installation using it as with other distros. And I believe that is true. I've given this to a couple people. I've given this one, I think, to a couple people. I've also given Peppermint to someone. My friend using Peppermint on old computer, he loves it. It's a really good system for them. All right, so here's the thing Systromon does not like. UI is Vista era in 2017. The UI doesn't scale more. I don't know. I kind of disagree. I love the look of it. I think it's slick. I think it's awesome. I'm not quite sure if I call it Vista. But I also, though, am among that weird group of people that thinks the modern UI is quite horrendously ugly. And if you do actually like quite horrendously ugly, if that's what he's talking about, if I can spell themes right, you can actually come up here and you can go ahead and make it horrendously ugly if you want. Just come down here to desktop and click over here, and you can go with a flat ugly theme if you want, and you can even change the icons to be horrible. I'm not a fan of that, so let me see. Is it? Oh yeah, I don't like this one either. I like the Linux Mint one. I'm not sure I've seen this one. Yeah. This one's flat. No, that one's ugly. All right, I like the Linux Mint one. But if you do like flat and ugly is an option. You got the options there. All right. Updates aren't automatic, and kernel updates are still manual. Actually, I think with that upgrade that I refused, I think that they were shooting to make upgrades automatic. I refused. Installing them that would be an interesting feature to add for those, but I would be absolutely diametrically opposed to you installing updates without my approval. I mean, I kind of want to have a little bit more control over my updates than that. Updating kernels manually, that could be an issue, but actually, come to think of it, I can't recall any distro off the top of my head that will automatically push the kernels out there. Maybe I just haven't been looking, though, either. I'm not sure. I don't know. See what Ubuntu's running. If I can remember how to check the kernel number. I can't remember how to check the kernel off the top. I thought I remembered how to check the kernel off the top of my head. I have to look that one up. let's see. I've never been able to get Samba server to work. That's an interesting one because my Linux Mint computer, it is the only computer I have that is absolutely bulletproof with the servers. It always works. Always works with my Samba servers and every other server. And this is the really frustrating part right now about my Ubuntu is and I think this actually showed up when I first upgraded to 1610. It might have, but if I come down here, in fact, all day this was not working. It's showing me now all of the networks, and this was broken. It was not working. Now I was actually able to access the server I wanted by coming down here and typing it in manually. I was able to do that. That got me my network, but all afternoon I was not actually able to get those network servers to work. I have that problem. My Mac network on that is crazy stupid. I think I can pull files off of it, but I cannot seem to get the ability to run anything on the Mac. Except the one system that works better than anything is my NAS system. Things just a bulletproof beast. I keep on meaning to create another folder just for sharing things universally across the platform. But my Samba servers on Linux Mint 18 work beautifully. Let's see. Many repository apps, especially nightly builds, rarely get updates at all. I have noticed this a little bit. This is a challenge. When I installed GUVC View, which I am not going to load because it may cause some conflicts with my camera, under the package that is available in the Linux Mint repository, at least on 17, it does not give you the most recent version, which is not able to take a raw camera input from the C920. And so I had to manually upgrade this with a PPA, which enabled me to actually run the video at HD quality. So that is certainly a criticism. Sometimes those packages are not up to date. And, it's not a huge deal to update those. Just check out their website and get the information. And let's see, I depend on Rosilio Sync and maintaining update Linux Mint was such a chore I gave up altogether. This has rendered my Linux Mint machine useless for work and relegated to an intellectual/academic curiosity for me at best. I'm not sure, up here he says this is the reason I run. I'm not sure what he means here. Depend on Rosillo Sync. So this must be a program. That must be a program for syncing folders back and forth. You can actually accomplish that with OwnCloud if setting up an OwnCloud install. I'm kind of more of a manual guy, so I can't comment on that at all. And if you absolutely rely on a syncing program, if there is not one. Now I know, let's see. I know Ubuntu has a built-in backup system. I thought this did as well. Said I just don't use them, so maybe it doesn't. Now I'm pretty sure Ubuntu has a backup program built in. Yeah, Ubuntu has the ability to make backups, and then you can set storage locations, which can include network folders. So I could actually have Ubuntu on the native platform, just take a backup and dump it directly to my NAS drive. Looks like Linux Mint 18. Let's see, does that have that? It looks like Linux Mint does not have that option. That is a neat selling point of Ubuntu, actually, is that ability to do that natively on the system. Make regular backups by a specific schedule and dump them on a network drive. So, I kind of agree with the comments there. I completely disagree with this guy's article. It's like this guy, it's like all he was concerned about is, does this thing have Wayland? And it's like, it doesn't have Wayland. It's not a good distro. Wayland is a new technology. It's a needed technology. I'm not disputing that. But it's something that for the end user is not quite as relevant. In fact, prior to looking into all of this, I wasn't even completely sure which computers I had here were actually running Wayland and which ones were just running X. I had to look them up. And so once again, we have a clickbaity article. Forget Wayland and get comfy with the command line. Really, command line to install packages on Linux Mint? No. Nope. Between Semantic Package Manager, which somebody said they were removing from the default install. Is it even a default install? I don't even know if it is a default install anyway. Unless I installed it, but I can't recall. I mean, you can come into here and very easily install things. I can't recall if you can set up a PPA from in here. I think you can delete them. I'm not sure if you can add them. Yeah, you can add new PPA right here. So even if you go online and you find that there's a program that you need to install a PPA, just come right in here, add new PPA, enter the name of it. Once you do that, you can just come over here, hit your reload button over here, and then search for the package right here. You don't need a command line. This kind of stuff makes me question whether ARSTechnica is really a good journalist source. I like it. I still read it every day. It's one of the few places I actually do get news. But, to discredit the most popular Linux distro because of the absence of a brand new emerging technology, that's ludicrous. And then to throw in the command line, which sounds scary. I use the command line because I like it and I'm fast with it. Other than that, I'd say of all of the Linux distros I've used, Linux Mint is the one I've used the command line least of any other distro. Linux Mint's great. Maybe I'm just a fanboy, but, and I like other Linux distros a lot too, but this is why I use Linux Mint. It's stable, it's high quality, it looks good, it's comfortable with my workflow and how I work. It's a rockin' system. If you want to switch to Linux, I'd highly encourage you to check out Linux Mint. Whether it's 18.0, 18.1, very few people are going to go wrong with Linux Mint. So this has been Tom, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.